Welcome to another edition of the Gaming Pulpit. It's going to be a little different this time since it's not going to be live. It's just a lot of different things that I'm doing that won't be the same. But anyway, welcome. I do have a guest here, and he is going to help me with my subjects here. So, the first subject I want to talk about, which there are four subjects, just to let you know. The first subject I do want to talk about is, I don't know if you noticed though. I don't know if you noticed, Terry, but apparently, PlayStation Plus, the Fall Guy game that everybody's like really, talking about and playing and stuff like that, that has been downloaded 20 million times. 20 million times.
Really?
It is the highest downloaded game in PS Plus history.
I must live under a rock then.
Well, this is why you are here, and this is why I wanted to catch you off guard with this information. So, first things first, there are people on YouTube, they talk about how PS Plus is not giving them things that they want. You know what I mean? So that's the first thing. They are really upset about the fact that they have already played these games. You know, the games that Sony has actually put on PS Plus for each month. Either they played the games before, or it's some PSN. It's some kind of PSN game, or an indie game. So I think I've talked about this before, and I didn't know how to address it. And now seeing this game's success, I think I have a clue, or I have an idea as to what Sony could do to address this. And let me ask you though. Let me ask you this: what would you do to improve on PS Plus? I guess that's the first thing.
I mean, the first thing that would come to me off the top of my head is perhaps maybe a better approach at kind of informing players in terms of like the benefits they get, and also like notifications on like things that are on sale. Because sometimes you can have things that essentially like are decent games. Maybe you didn't get around to playing it or whatever, and there's like a nice sale, but you kind of have to go through like the whole deal list, and it would be nice if, I know for the big titles they'll put them up there, but it would be nice maybe if they kind of like had a rotation, or maybe they kind of had a better way of kind of searching for things, something like that. But really just information stuff, just letting the player know like what benefits are getting, and or like what kind of special sales going on, stuff like that.
Well, they kind of already do. For instance, The Last of Us was.
I'm just saying, on top of my head, I can't think of any glaring issues off the top of my head with PlayStation Plus.
But what about the games that they put out every month? I don't think that you are one to utilize that feature.
Well, it with the games that come out every month. I mean, typically, of course, you'll have like one or two games that are free or whatever, with the PlayStation Plus subscription, and then you'll have like deals or whatever. I mean, I don't really have anything negative to say in terms of improvement. It's not that there isn't any improvements to be made. I just, off the top of my head, I can't really think of anything that it really bothered me or was a glaring issue in terms of my interactions with PlayStation Plus. So.
And what about the validity of people, kind of, I hate using the word complaining. At my job, they tell me not to.
Of course, I have a little more to say. When it comes to people complaining about what they want, I mean, I think sometimes it's either a misinterpretation of what a service is, or the people are just kind of being entitled. What I mean by that is, I've used this example before. It's like you go into an Italian restaurant and you're trying to order Chinese food or cuisine, and it's very obvious you're not going to get that there because of you're going to a place that its services are designed around something specific. And with PlayStation Plus, of course, you have the online features, but it's kind of designed as like a kind of like an all-rounder, instead of just having your online capabilities. It's not designed as a Game Pass. It's not designed as a Netflix monthly subscription feature where you get all these goodies for paying a monthly fee. It's not designed that way. So I think a lot of those complaints and really just entitled kind of rigmarole, I'll call it that. I think simply just comes from a misunderstanding or misinterpretation of the service of PlayStation Plus, and in trying to apply something to it that, or a label, excuse me, trying to apply a label to it that was never there in the first place.
So what
So
is it exactly? What is PlayStation Plus to you?
PlayStation Plus to me is simply it is it's really just like a PlayStation. I would look at it as like a PlayStation Store like membership or gift card, or not gift card, but kind of like things you have. You go to Macy's or you go to a grocery store or something. If you're like or like Costco's, right? Like you have a membership there. There are kind of special deals and stuff you get, and it's the benefit is that in the long run, as you're committed to your membership, those bonuses, they kind of pay out in the long run. So it's kind of like Sony in a way is just trying to entice people to kind of look at a long-term relationship with their platform instead of something short-term. And when it applies to everything that the store has to offer. So it can be themes, it can be avatars, it can be movies or TV shows. They may have specific deals. Um, but I think it's overall it's not necessarily like I use the example of Netflix or something. It's simply just it's something that if you play your PlayStation a lot, you're going to get a lot of bang for your buck out of that membership. And it goes beyond just the necessity of those online features. You know, Especially when it comes to discounts. Like they'll have a special sale for like Christmas holidays or something, right? But then as a PlayStation Plus member, you get additional discounts. You know, now on the flip side, it doesn't really pay off to only have it for like a month at a time or on and off. But it's more or less if you're someone who is committed or your gaming time is specifically kind of spent on your PlayStation, you kind of get more out of it. So in that sense, I think it's a pretty good service. But I think if you were going back and forth between platforms, it may not be worth the investment. But you know, that's just my opinion.
I personally have been saying this forever about what the PlayStation Plus is. I worked at Costco before, and it resembled a Costco membership. It's called a membership. You know what I mean? Not a subscription,
Hmm.
actually. So I don't know where you get people like Mystic Gaming or Mystic Games or whatever his name is consistently, say that, oh, we didn't get a good deal this time, and they really need to step it up. It's like on one side of the fence, if Sony were to do um, a subscription where, I mean, if they gave a game that's new,
Hmm.
you know, then what exactly? It's not a good business strategy to do that. The whole Game Pass thing. So
Hmm.
I mean, he's starting to Mystic Gaming specifically is starting to more and more talk about Xbox stuff, and it kind of correlates because it's competition, and you kind of can figure out what's going on. But he's been praising, Phil Spencer a lot, and I'm like, man, this Kool-Aid shit is, kind of out of control there. But I had an idea. I know this is
Hmm.
long-winded. My idea, I was thinking, you know what? The way to eliminate complaints, because Sony is not going to put their game day and date. That's never going to happen. You know what I mean? Because it devalues the. I mean, they spend millions of dollars, hundreds of millions of dollars to make a game. You know, then no one's going to do that. Have it for free. The model. completely falls apart. So I was thinking to myself, you know what? I think Sony should, at least in the future, this is what I would
Mm-hmm.
do. Um, is I mean, you can have your existing games or a PSN game, an indie game, or whatever, or a big budget game, or you know, Netflix is kind of popular because they have their own series. There's a lot of hit and misses,
Mm-hmm.
but they have their own series, and people will purchase Netflix for that time. You know what I'm saying? So,
Mm-hmm.
um, Fall Guys, looking at that game and how successful it was, because it actually catapulted the PC experiences as well. The same thing, people don't really, they undermine this too. Fortnite was already available before it got big,
Mm-hmm.
and PUBG was that type of battle royale type shooter that you couldn't get on PlayStation, which had a larger user base, and it was already on PC. It was
Mm-hmm.
pretty big, and it was already free to play on PlayStation, and people started to play it as as an alternative. Anyway, so that's how that game became big, and Fall Guys, by extension, became huge because of it being free and you could test it out, and droughts and there's nothing really going on. I mean, that's up to Sony to
Mm-hmm.
kind of forecast, exactly what to do in this particular case. Um, so that's what I can see Sony doing. But why not, have unproven games? You know what I'm saying? Why not that? Why not have games where no one knows anything about, and it hasn't been anywhere else, basically. You know what I'm saying? Even if it's for
Mm-hmm.
a week or whatever the case is. But same thing with Rocket League. No one. I mean, why don't you put that out there? That's what I would. That's what I would imagine. Just kind of put that out there, and it kind of eliminates the complaints of, oh, there's no games. No one played it before. You know what I'm saying? So you can't say that you haven't played it. You get
Mm-hmm.
the chance to try it out, and it's unproven. If that makes any sense. I mean, what do you think about that?
No, well, it makes sense. I mean, it's kind of a good idea to help kind of get exposure because, the thing with PSN, like let's say compare it to Steam, right? Steam hosts a bunch of games that maybe up and coming indie stuff like that. The problem is that of course, as you know,
A lot
um,
of shit.
the the downside is that kind of becomes over flooded, and you also have the which it's kind of normal now is you have a bunch of like really sorry cash grabs, you know, where it's like minimal effort. People are just trying to get a quick buck. And early access titles and Steam Greenlight, like it's just a bunch of shit, and no one wants to wade through that stuff. So kind of in return, it's like a lot of people just kind of stick to big titles and don't mess with that because it's like it's pretty much always a gamble. Um, Now with kind of like PSN, you're able to, with the way they have the store set up, like for example, they can take something like Rocket League that was, you know, fairly small budget game, small team, and kind of put that up there. And then I had played it when it was free, way back when, and I played it for about a month. But I mean, that game was freaking amazing. I mean, it's still amazing. Just from kind of looking at people play it recently. But that was like an amazing title, and it totally deserved the attention. And I'm pretty sure that helped kind of catapult its kind of community, in terms of
Same
growth.
thing with Warframe. You know what I mean? Games like
Yeah.
that where you can put stuff that can evolve, and the Warframe type of template.
Hmm.
I just think that that would be a way to solve this. PSN has no games, and we want games to be day and date, which is never going to happen for anybody. It's not profitable. Period. It's not. I don't
I
know how
think the
people can
strategy
think of
of
that.
Microsoft is Microsoft is trying a different strategy because kind of doing what Sony's doing is not going to get them
Well,
anywhere.
they're doing it
My
half-assed, you know. They
yeah, Microsoft is such a big company and they have so much money. Like you can, I mean, I'm not an expert on the subject, but I know that you can kind of move a lot of money around to try and boost a different industry that you're trying to build up as your big corporation or whatever. Um, and really, like with what Microsoft is doing, that's kind of what I see. I really just see them taking kind of a convoluted route to try and attract people to their services and their platform. Because I mean, like I imagine, something. I imagine that must be kind of difficult in terms of, like, hey, we got this brand new game. Oh, it's going to be free if you have PSN, and it's like, how does the developer, how did they get their fair share, of like, hey, we worked on this game for like 3 years, and like, that company needs to make a return on investment. To me, it just seems very kind of convoluted. Whereas, if you allow a company to put a game up on your store, if it's a new game, and then of course, kind of later on, you're kind of able to work out a deal where you kind of can put things on a special sale. Um, and especially it kind of works out. Whereas, you may have games that have been around for a while, but let's say they have like this new big update, you know, with new content and have it like on a PlayStation Plus thing, right? That would kind of temporarily kind of, I'm just theory crafting here, but kind of temporarily kind of boost the player base, right? Like everyone's got PlayStation Plus, they can get this new game for, they can get this kind of old game for free and check out the new content. And at the end of that month, you may have a bunch of recurring players that have been added onto that population that weren't there before. So I think kind of ultimately I think the way Sony kind of does things, I think it's healthier for the market in a competitive sense, but I also think it's healthier for games and their kind of respective communities, especially as you mentioned like Warframe, like free to play games. There's not a you don't have to use PlayStation Plus to check those games out, which probably does them a big service.
right.
Also, one more thing to add, depending on the game, having like let's say a game's like $15 or $20 or something, and it's free with PlayStation Plus for like a particular month. Well, by not having that kind of pay barrier to get into the game may have a bunch of other kind of transactions that would kind of help them generate revenue. And it's like all they really need is exposure. They just really need people to kind of play their game and check it out. And in the case of something like, as I already stated in the past, like Rocket League, like that's the game's grown quite a bit, but I mean that was an amazing fucking game for how kind of simple it was and easy to get into. But it's a hell of a lot of fun to play. But I think kind of what PlayStation doing is a bit more healthy. Because I think with the kind of Game Pass thing with Microsoft's doing, like maybe those deals work out better if your game's not going to sell that much, you know. But to me, it just seems kind of convoluted and it
It's
seems
too it's
kind of
too it's too risky.
unhealthy.
It's too
You know?
risky and it's too much of a loss because just because something's free doesn't mean people's going to play it. All right, so our next subject is actually going to be about the existence of Xbox Series S. I'm not sure if you heard all the different rumors.
It's
S.
it's
I don't know if you heard all the different rumors about it, but I was on a podcast and something just kind of, you know, rose within me to say this. And to
like
me,
grinds your gears.
no, it didn't grind my gears. It was one of those things where I ended up saying it, and it just clicked in terms of it made things understandable as to what Microsoft is going to do or trying to do, because it doesn't make any sense. There are some people that believe that Microsoft is trying to incorporate a streaming box, and I don't think so. One, because um, the xCloud has a lot of issues as it stands anyway, every streaming services, including Stadia, has a lot of issues. And then with this whole COVID situation where everyone's working from home, this amount of stress on the infrastructure is not going to bode well for situations like streaming. It's just not going to
The
work.
COVID cloud.
The COVID cloud, yeah, it's not going to work. So I don't believe that they're doing a streaming box. But what are they doing? Because there are talks that Xbox Series X is going to be a $600 console. And that sounds crazy, but then usually big corporate,
Mhm.
companies are fucking retarded anyway. They're dumb. They don't know what the hell they're doing. They have these focus groups that don't know how gaming works in this case. So they don't
Mhm.
know. So and while what they need is Series S, which is a lesser platform. The platform essentially is like for the Series S, it's supposed to be a 4 terabyte system with an SSD,
Mhm.
but like I think half the memory. We have 16 gigabytes of memory, system memory. I think it's like 8 or something like that, which already puts a strain on the developers and what they have to do. Uh, they claim that these new engines, are scalable, which is a
Mhm.
load of shit to me because it's going to be a different architecture. The PS5 and the Xbox Series X are not the same system. I don't care if AMD made the damn system. There's variances that makes them, different. So the point is, why is Microsoft creating this Series S? You know what I mean? I kind of want to get your take on this. What do you think they are making these two platforms for?
Well, just to clarify, that's a rumor, right? In terms of the streaming capabilities, or it being dedicated as a streaming
Oh no, that's not a that's
device.
that's not even a rumor. That's a belief. It, it's
Okay.
it's it's lower on the totem
Well,
pole.
I.
It wouldn't need 4 terabyte. It wouldn't need 4
Mhm.
teraflops if that was a streaming box. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? That's number one. Number two, Stadia already has like a streaming system. You know,
Mhm.
so I
It,
go on.
the
Sorry.
only thing I could think of is, perhaps maybe, Microsoft is maybe trying to get ahead of the curve in that, at some point in the future, like a streaming gaming service will be plausible. Right now, the infrastructure is not there. Okay, there may be a very few
Well,
selective sites.
take that out of your head about the streaming.
Hmm.
Whatever it is a 4 terabyte system. That's what's been known.
Hmm.
So it's not even worth talking about it being streaming or them using the infrastructure because
Hmm.
it's just not a thing. But why have two systems?
Um, I mean, the first thing that come off the top of my head would be just a simple, you got your basic and then your enthusiast platform. Um, Beyond that, I don't know why you would want to have two systems. I think kind of having two.
That's the conclusion that everybody is thinking. It's like the X is definitely going to be expensive. You know what I'm
Mhm.
saying? How much expensive is the question? Um,
Well, my another guess I would make too is that in terms of strategy, perhaps perhaps maybe Microsoft, maybe when it comes to manufacturing, um, they're a bit more, I guess, secure in that, like with Sony, Sony comes up with the PlayStation, right? Just one PlayStation platform that lasts so long, and then halfway through its life cycle, you have the enthusiast platform, right, which is the Pro. Um, I'm thinking maybe with Microsoft, maybe just manufacturing wise, they feel confident that they can just kind of release two at the same time and kind of keep up with demand, or maybe they don't think there's going to be that much demand. So, because I think for Sony it'd be kind of riskier in that you have to kind of figure out, especially with the COVID, you know, um, you kind of have to make the decision like how many units you're going to produce and kind of like what kind of scheduling you're going to have and
And
can you kind of maintain it? And I think having two different systems, um, and not knowing like who's going to buy what the percentage values are, you may have a large portion of stuff left over, um, of one version versus the next. So
yeah, I just want to keep it short because I'm running out of time here. But the idea that I had is Microsoft is clearly brute forcing. It's the little cute little phrase I made. The industry,
mhm.
they're trying to cover all bases. It's known that the Xbox One has sold about 50 million units in 6 years worldwide. So clearly something's wrong. You know what I mean? And clearly they need to sell this Game Pass because that they look at at this point they look at Sony's numbers and they're like, oh shit, they're really making a killing, but we don't have to pull that they do. So the only thing that we could do is beat them in price. You know what I mean? And kind of lure people to go from one place to another. But the danger with this is that they're going to run into this issue where they're going to saturate the market with all these fucking X's all over the fucking place. Xbox One X has been discontinued in favor of the Series S. You know, it also limits what a developer could do if they're trying to make an engine scalable. I mean, look at Halo. Halo is fucked up. That shit is not. It's not it. It's not it. Whatever they got going on, it's not it. So, um, I mean, they spent their whole time trying to brute force, just sheer power, and it never worked. You know, the only time where they kind of gained some ground was releasing early and cheaper. You know, and that was for the 360. And even then, Sony still managed to catch up with the pedigree that they had. You know what I mean? They still don't get the games or what makes things. So it just leads me to this final thought of this subject that clearly Sony is not going to try to beat them in price because they don't need to. But everybody's wondering why are they, which we'll talk about later, why are they taking so long to come up with the pricing and stuff like that. I mean, Sony's a smart company, and I hate to say it sounds like I'm a shill, but they are smart because if people are going to complain about Sony, then they have to complain about Microsoft, and they're waiting as long as possible for Microsoft to release their pricing so they can undermine it with either value or the price itself. You know, Somebody's going to have to come up with something. I don't necessarily think that they're playing chicken. Because I think ultimately it's going to be a $500 console. I don't know how much the digital version is going to be for the PlayStation 5, but it's going to be a $500 console. And I think because they got their shit from AMD, Microsoft knows. They know exactly what the cost is going to be, and they don't know how far Sony is willing to go. Are they going to really cut their losses and make it a $400 console? They don't know, and it's really Microsoft sweating because they need to sell these Game Passes. You know, Sony has sold about 115 million, uh, 15 million so far, and the PS5 is not even out yet, and the generation is really kind of like not over until the new consoles come out. So asking you that real quick, what do you think about that assessment?
I think it's fairly accurate. It's we've talked about this on our own time, but I think I think just it can easily be observed that Microsoft trying to do a head-to-head strategy with Sony's platform is clearly not working.
It ain't
So
working.
you have to apply a different strategy. Now it is possible that you know what Microsoft is offering, it may be kind of successful in its own right in terms of, there may be a demographic of people out there that kind of like what they're offering and they buy it. But I think in terms of, the kind of console enthusiast platform, I still think at least, um, for the foreseeable future, I mean, Sony kind of has that on lockdown. Um,
Sony, Sega has done this before, oversaturating the market, and it didn't bode well for them. All these add-ons and shit like that. It's just too many consoles uh, for a finite size of a market. They don't know what they're doing to me personally. So there's that. All right, and that kind of brings me to the next subject. It brings me to our third subject, which is the what Sony is doing now, and with this whole COVID situation going on with the PlayStation 5, by the way, that could be the holdup as well. No one knows how to approach, the console sales because again, I know there was an incentive a while ago that Sony wanted people to go onto their website, and now it's starting to come to fruition. Sony has just today, I don't know if you know this, but they are starting their personal pre-orders for the PlayStation 5 for only the US and only if you register your PlayStation ID.
hmm
And it's random, and it seems like a random draw. We don't know exactly what's going on, but you can put in your shit, and pretty much they'll let you know via email if you've gotten it. You can only do like you can do two controllers, two cameras, only one console, obviously. So there's that. Um, and it just on this podcast that I was in, one of the members basically stated that there's no Black Friday. You know what I mean with the COVID. So
hmm
what exactly are we going to do in this case? Um, and it's kind of curious as to what's going on. Sony wants to really have their own store. They want to really do the whole store thing. You know what I mean? Have their own type of ecosystem and stuff like that. So what's your
hmm
what's going on with that? Did you know that this was going on?
that in particular, with the the exclusive kind of personal pre-order thing, I wasn't aware of. That is kind of interesting.
What do you think is going on with it?
I think this is just a theory, but I think that Sony, they probably understand the value of the U.S. market, and with the kind of COVID thing, um, maybe part of it is kind of a test to, like a low key test to maybe try and see like how many participants they get to where they can kind of extrapolate that data and see like how many units they're going to need uh, manufactured.
So
You know,
we're on the solid snake system, right? They're just running
yeah,
fucking
like,
tests
like
on us.
it's just a theory of mine. I could be totally wrong, but just with the way everything is kind of moving slow around the world economically. So, perhaps what Sony is trying to do, this is a theory, but the smart thing would be is you don't want to invest too much into games or products, knowing that there's less money out there in the market to buy things. So you kind of want to you want to do what you're doing, but you want to take it at a snail's pace, right? You don't want to be burning too much money, because you know that you know the selling things on the market, that's going to be slower too. So perhaps they're trying to get a more precise idea of like realistically what to expect. Like how many people could we theoretically have available to buy a PS5 with what's going on right now? Um,
Well, I'm not sure if you know about this, but Apple fucking is a $2 trillion company. Somehow they just got there, and it's like, how the
oh
fuck?
yeah, yeah. Amazon, um, Amazon was the first $1 trillion company. Apple,
Well, it's
they
two
shouldn't be
trillion.
too far behind.
It's 2 trillion, not just one, but two.
Yeah,
And
you talking about
and
Apple, right?
the
With
Apple,
Apple.
yeah.
Uh, yeah,
And
yeah,
it's
it makes
during
sense. I
and it's
mean,
during the COVID, so there's that. Maybe they see
like,
some kind of because they can skip Amazon altogether. You know,
mhm.
Sony altogether they could just skip them. So that's a curious, you know, it's a curious plan they got going on there. I am wondering. I don't know. It's a really interesting. This is definitely an interesting time. Um, it's just very hard to pin down what exactly is going on. I actually I wasn't supposed to put my ID in and stuff like that because I wasn't really technically invited. But how word gets around on Twitter and just the internet.
Mhm.
I ended up putting my PSN on there just in case because I think like you because I could have gotten Sony's phone just to let you know
Yeah.
directly from Sony, or I could have went to different places, and I chose Amazon in this case. You know, um, and that's probably a way for Sony to get more money you know out of the units. As I'm sure Amazon is getting a cut, whereas Sony, I didn't even
Mhm.
think about this just now. Sony is not. They don't have to cut any money to anybody, just like the retailers. The PlayStation 5, whatever it may cost, isn't um, isn't exactly the numbers. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
It's a certain amount of it's a certain amount that has to be dedicated to the retailer. And if you buy it directly from Sony, then the only thing they have to do is pay shipping cost.
Mhm.
So it may be it may be just a better a cost saving measure for undercutting Microsoft as well in price, if they do it this way. They mentioned that the demand for the PlayStation 5 is extremely high. I mean, we kind of know this, but, you know, it's a way to undercut, you know, giving retailers a certain amount of cut, to me. But that's what I think. I mean, what do you think about that thought there?
Well, with kind of what's going on, I mean, I think everyone is trying to figure out a way to try and cut out the middleman and just try and connect directly with whoever the consumer is.
Yeah, and
Um,
I work for a cable company, and that's what a lot of customers are doing. They want to cut out the middleman and go directly to the networks. You know what I mean? Whether it be Netflix or Hulu or Sling TV or whatever the case is,
yeah.
and it could be a little cheaper for the consumers as well. I mean, this brick and mortar situation is dying fast, really,
Hmm.
and this definitely accelerated the brick and mortar avenue for sure. But continue. Hello.
No, they're just not. I think you kind of summed it up. Not really too much I can really add to what you said, honestly.
Okay. Anyway, lastly, we're going to be talking about Call of Duty. Surprisingly, Call of Duty.
Call of Duty. Hmm.
So, there's been talk about the PlayStation 5 not being able to, and I'm not going to get technical with this, but not being able to ray trace. That's number one. It's based off of a older architecture that supposedly the Xbox Series X is, the latest, and it have less processing units for ray tracing. And it's basically a less powerful console, has a little bit less bandwidth and stuff like that. But here, Call of Duty comes out of nowhere. There's two little pieces of this story. They said that they're going to support 120 frames a second, which TVs at 4K can't really do. But they are promising 4K. I don't know how they're going to do it, whether it's dynamic or some sort of reconstruction method. They have a new trailer cutscene They have a little bit of gameplay in there, um, and with this little bit of gameplay, they they who knows what I mean. You can I mean go to Digital Foundry or Next Gen Gaming to find out what's going on with that in terms of the technical aspects. But they promised 4K. They promised ray tracing, global illumination specifically, which is my favorite form of ray tracing. Um, and they also promised um, 120 frames per second ray tracing and in 4K. So uh, that's number one. And number two, um, what did I want to say? Number two, and I'm sorry, just being super distracted with something. So
Hmm.
supposedly it's about the 1960s. It's a Cold War, Call of Duty Cold War, I think they called it. Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War. And they said the campaign is going to have a gender neutral pronouns and character creations. And this is real shit. So that being said, let's I know that's why I said it's a meaty one. It's a thick ass subject. So without being drawn out, quickly and concisely tell me what you think about the whole 4K 120 frames per second and ray tracing and then
Okay,
showing and
so
then, yeah.
4K, obviously, 4K in
And
terms
by
of
the way,
next generation.
by the way, just and I'll let you have the floor there. 4K and anything higher than 60 frames a second is a limitation of the technology of 4K LCD panels or OLED panels. You got to have a lower resolution. You can't do both right now. It's very
Hmm.
hard to do both. It's very hard and or expensive. So, all right, 4K. Continue. Sorry.
So 4K as the kind of standard resolution for next gen.
Revolution.
Revolution resolution. That's obviously not too far fetched. I mean, it's very clear that while with the PS4 Pro and the Xbox enthusiast platform as well,
It's a linear
um,
experience anyway.
you
So,
there is some 4K, some native, some kind of little below or checkerboard rendering or whatever. Next gen, obviously, the goal is that pretty much everything runs 4K standard, right? That seems kind of realistic, given how TV markets are kind of pushing 4K TVs and so on and so forth. 120 frames a second. To me, I don't see the logic in that because I think when it comes to first person shooters, I think 60 frames is kind of the golden number. You don't really need to go beyond that. Now, there may be some special cases where I would say probably fighting games. If you're like Tekken or Street Fighter or something like that, like running at 120 frames a second, I could see where that would have some kind of real benefit.
but Digital
Just
Foundry
because,
said that you have the more frames the better.
um, but
Fuck them.
in terms of well, in terms of other games, it's not really necessary, right? I think that's almost like a luxury thing. I don't. I think for most games, 60 frames a second is plenty. I mean, you don't.
It's like
Just a
it's
quick
the same
example.
it's the same complaint with 4K. You know, everybody's it's
Mhm.
not necessary. We want higher frames. At what point does the higher frames become, have diminishing
Well,
returns?
the higher the frames, the more you start to encounter diminishing returns in terms of what the human eye is actually able to discern the difference between. Excuse me.
And the same thing with resolution too. Eventually, I'm sure there's some people that could utilize higher frame rates, but shit, you know
Mhm.
what I mean? It's a lot. But go on.
When it comes to TVs and monitors, um, you know, most. Hold
So while he's away, basically that's my analyses on
on.
that
Sorry
one.
about that.
Go on.
Um, speaking of someone else, yeah, 120 frames. It really seems more of a luxury. I don't think it's really necessary to go past that. Like I said, fighting games is the one exception, but I think generally speaking, 60 frames is good enough. I don't think anyone really has a great desire beyond that. Then of course you have the diminishing returns. Now, when it comes to TVs and gaming monitors and such, um, most TVs run at your kind of 60 or 70 hertz. Of course, you can go for some that do 120, 144. I think now there are some very special ones where you can get like 240. That 240 hertz may be more or less more common or whatever. Um, but of course, having a 4K TV that can have a refresh rate that high, you start to kind of get into some complications. Now, there are some special examples, like when it comes to gaming monitors. Um, you have things like G-Sync and stuff like that, which I'm sure there will be some items like that available, but they'll probably be pretty pricey. So in terms of the kind of regular person, most people buying next gen platforms, they'll just have a 4K TV with your typical refresh rate. I think beyond that, that's more into kind of enthusiast territory that saves up a lot of money or has a lot of money. Um, but I once again, I don't really think 120 is really. But then, oh yeah, with the ray tracing. Now, ray tracing has been around for a while, but let me put this into perspective. That when you have like a new shiny bell or whistle that comes out, like ray tracing. Ray tracing was displayed years ago. However, you got to think of the equipment that technology is running on. You're always trying to show off future technology, right? Because you're trying to appeal to shareholders and stuff like that. But it's still fairly expensive, to run something like that. So I think, probably early on, you'll kind of have like maybe a hybridization or something that's kind of part way, and then kind of later on into the generation, we'll get closer and closer to that kind of true ray tracing, global illumination stuff. But that's still pretty expensive in terms of the resources it hogs up.
It
Until
is.
there are more efficient techniques,
I made a video about
that are
this.
developed.
I made a video about this, like the bandwidth. I'm sorry, not
Mhm.
bandwidth, not just bandwidth, but the memory requirements to remember all the where the rays are bouncing from is memory
Mhm.
intensive, which is one of the reasons why Sony opted to do the super fast SSD and use that as almost like a RAM pool. Um, really, I know what you want to talk about, and it's not ray tracing. So you might as well get it the fuck out your system, get it out my system, 'cause I sure as hell want to talk about it.
I'll let you go first.
Oh no 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 no! You can go
No,
first,
no,
cause
no, no. Please, by all means, by all means.
in the 1960s, you once again, this is the same Call of Duty shit, not Call of Duty. Uh, what is that? Fucking what's the competitor to Call of Duty? Battlefield.
Battlefield.
They try to do the same thing with I don't know World War I or whatever the fuck it is, right? Where they tried to be friendly with the with the fucking so ridiculous.
Battlefield 5, technically,
Battlefield
that was World
5.
War II or whatever. But
Yeah.
anyways,
They try to be really friendly with okay, we want to, be inclusive with a whole bunch of female characters, which is no problem, you know what I'm saying, with the female thing, because there were female people that were in there. But then they had handicaps that they wanted to be also friendly to as well, you know. And people were like, that shit is not accurate. I don't think it's going to get as much a backlash to say gender neutral and stuff like that, but holy shit, people pretend like this get woke shit isn't a real thing, and it's just like, what? Who gives a fuck? I don't understand why that needs to be announced. I don't fucking get it. I don't get it. I don't get it. Absolutely do not get it. It's like it's the fucking 1960s. He's a he, and she's a she in that time. I can see if you're doing it now where it's more pronounced and shit like that. Shit technology to cut off your own fucking penis or your own titty or whatever the fuck it is that you want to do.
cut it off. Cut it off.
you, you couldn't really do it that well or at all back then. You know what I mean? Because of the complications, we just weren't there yet. So I just don't understand. I don't understand why this is a thing. I don't like why this is needs to be announced. Number one, I don't understand it. This is so ridiculous. Same thing with the fucking Last of Us. I won't go too far into that one. But the same message is being, and everybody's like, why do you even care? Who cares about it? They need a platform too to speak up. Then you should have did a future game, where like fucking Cyberpunk, they can do that because they're cybernetic. You know what I mean? It matches with the story. But if you're going to talk about some historic shit that's going on in the '60s, it never fucking happened. Get over it. Back then, it never happened. They didn't. It was the pronouns for a person were exactly what they were. They were based off of biology. XY chromosome, that nigga's a he. XX chromosome, that bitch is a
Biology is
she.
racist.
Yeah.
Science, racist.
So your take.
Uh, well,
Please concise this shit as much as you can.
is there such a thing?
Not for you. That's why I said as much as
Well,
you can.
in a nutshell, when games try to do this, or TV shows or movies, it is simply a pathetic attempt to try and, you know, garner in or allure, potential new buyers, or, maybe people don't play games or some nonsense like that. I think if you actually had a good game, you could just stand on the merits of having
Cyberpunk.
you know, having a good game and then letting, people play it. You know, um, I mean, it's just kind of, it's just a lame way. It's like saying, hey guys, we got this game, call it whatever, and there's a bunch of black characters in this game. So hey, you black people, you should buy this game because we got black people in it.
Like,
And
imagine how ridiculous would have been. Oh, we just wanted to let you know that we have black people in our game. Like, what?
so that all the black people should pick it up, or fucking,
Pick it up, pick it up, pick it up.
something like, hey, we got. I don't know. Let's just think of some famous person. You know, I don't know. Like fucking, we got some actor from France to do the voice work here, so all the French people should buy our game. It's just kind of silly, really. It's just kind of it's a lame attempt to try and get people to pick up your game. It's a lame attempt to try and seem like some kind of virtuous company where, oh look, they're so great. They include different people, in their games. Like there's some kind of, you know, there's the stereotypical kind of white guy that, everyone is like, who's white, but other people are different. The logic is just stupid. At the end of the day, as you like to say, if you just have a good game, people will play it. Look at Ghost of Tsushima. Ghost of Tsushima is about Japanese people versus the Mongols. There's no other ethnic group there, realistically speaking. But you got a bunch of white people, black people, Mexicans, and you got all
God
kinds
knows
of people
whoever the fuck
playing.
else playing it.
Yeah, you probably got a bunch of gay people in there. You probably got a bunch of, I don't know, whoever, man. Like, you got plenty of people from all different types of walks of life or backgrounds or whatever. They're probably playing that game and enjoying it when it only focuses on two ethnic groups, really, at the story. But it gets that attraction because it's a fun game to play. I don't know why you think you need to, try and do this kind of PR nonsense. These kind of poor tactics.
I don't even think it's trying to allure anyone. I think it's a headline grabber. You know what I mean? I think it's a way to gain attention.
Because, I mean, let's be
Because
realistic
I
here, and
don't know what
I'll
other
end with
way.
this. Like, let's be realistic. If you play a Call of Duty title, when you go into your lobby, 99% of the people you run into are going to be teenage boys calling you faggot and the N-word, perpetually. So that's kind of it. So I mean, like, what do you expect? Seriously.
It's so ridiculous. So ridiculous.